Previously, on Prophecy of Atlantis. Hidden within the great oasis, the heir of the Undine Queen has grown into a favored son, his true nature concealed beneath fire and glamour. But the waters have begun to stir, answering a call Lucian Cross does not yet understand. Prophecy of Atlantis, Season 1, Tides of Fire, Episode 5, Memories of Atlantis.
The moonlight filtered through the stained glass windows of Thomas and Joyce's bedroom, casting prismatic patterns across the floor. Thomas stood by the window, his expression troubled as he gazed out at the night sky. The stars seemed unusually bright tonight, as if the celestial dimension was pressing closer to Gaia than normal. Joyce entered the room, still in her surgical scrubs, her hair pulled back in a loose bun. She paused when she saw her husband's tense posture.
"You received a message,"
she said. It wasn't a question. Thomas nodded without turning. "Mother sent a celestial messenger today. The summer court is growing impatient." Joyce crossed the room to stand beside him, placing a gentle hand on his arm.
"They want Diana."
"Queen Lyra wants Princess Divina," Thomas corrected, his voice taking on the melodic quality it held when he spoke of his homeland. "My sister believes it's time Diana learns her true identity and takes her rightful place in the court." Joyce was quiet for a moment, studying her husband's profile. The ethereal beauty that had first captivated her 25 years ago still took her breath away.
"And what do you think?"
Thomas finally turned to face her. "I think our daughter deserves to choose her own path." His green eyes flashed with an inner light. "She doesn't understand what she's asking. My mother may believe this is for the best, but I know my sister. Once Diana learns she's not just half fae but royalty, once she crosses the threshold to Atlantis and is formally introduced to the regions as Princess Divina, there's no returning to the life she knows."
"The dreams are getting stronger,"
Joyce said softly.
"You've seen how the plants respond to her now, just like they do to you. The aquarium's sea creatures recognize something in her. She already knows she's half fae, but these dreams of Atlantis must be confusing her."
"That doesn't mean she has to abandon this world. Her world." Thomas moved away from the window, his movements flowing with inhuman grace. "She has a life here, Joy. She has Mark, her studies, her friends. Everything she knows is here on Gaia." Joyce followed him, her practical nature asserting itself.
"But everything she is comes from both worlds. We've always known this day would come, when she'd need to learn about Atlantis, about her royal heritage."
"I wanted her to have more time," Thomas said, his voice barely above a whisper. "The burden of royal blood, the politics of the courts of the Eastern Forest, the responsibilities of her power, and the prophecy."
"The twin flame prophecy,"
Joyce finished for him.
"You think that's why Lyra is pushing now?"
Thomas nodded grimly. "Yes, Lyra's pushing harder than ever. I fear she's not just following prophecies anymore." He stopped abruptly, unable to continue. Joyce took his hands in hers, the grounding energy meeting the magical as she always had.
"When she meets her destined mate."
"If the prophecy is true," Thomas said, "then Diana and whoever this other person is will change the very fabric of both worlds." "Such power." He shook his head. "I've seen what power does in the summer court. I won't have our daughter become a pawn in my sister's games. Mother sees it too. Queen Mother Rose believes Lyra wants Diana there to control her, to shape the future queen, since Lyra will never have children of her own."
"She's stronger than you think,"
Joyce countered.
She has your magic and my stubborn practicality.
She offered a small smile.
The best of both worlds.
Thomas didn't return the smile. What if she resents us for keeping this from her? What if she isn't ready?
Will anyone ever truly be ready to learn their Atlantean royalty, destined to reshape 2 dimensions?
Joyce asked pragmatically.
The dreams won't stop, Thomas. They'll only get stronger. And what about the changes we're already seeing? The way water responds to her emotions, how plants reach for her.
Thomas moved to their dresser, opening the ornate wooden box that contained his most precious possessions. From it, he withdrew a delicate circlet woven from what appeared to be starlight and delicate vines. "Mother sent this," he said, the ancient crown catching the light strangely, seeming to exist partly in another dimension. "Diana's birthright. She says our daughter must wear it at the Samhain masquerade ball." Joyce touched the circlet with reverent fingers.
It's beautiful.
"It's a chain," Thomas replied, his voice suddenly bitter. "One I escaped when I chose you, when I chose this world."
You never regretted it.
Joyce said confidently. "Never," he agreed immediately. "But Diana hasn't made that choice yet. If she enters Atlantis, if she's formally presented to society..."
Then she becomes Princess Divina in truth, not just in blood.
Joyce finished.
And with the twin flame prophecy hanging over her head,
Thomas carefully replaced the circlet in its box. "I won't force this destiny upon her. I won't have her meet this mysterious twin flame and be bound by ancient magic before she's even had a chance to understand what it means to be royal fae, to be heir to the summer court." Joyce was quiet for a long moment, her doctor's mind methodically working through the problem.
perhaps there's a middle ground. Diana already knows she's half fae, but we've kept the truth about Atlantis and her royal status from her. What if we tell her everything now? About her royal heritage, about the prophecy, but let her decide whether to accept the invitation.
"Lyra won't accept that," Thomas warned. "My sister is queen of the summer court. She doesn't compromise."
Queen Mother Rose compromised when you fell in love with a human doctor.
Joyce reminded him with a smile.
She allowed our marriage, allowed Diana to be raised here, knowing only that she was part fae.
"Because Mother believed Diana would eventually take my place," Thomas corrected. "That our daughter would return to Atlantis and strengthen the royal bloodline with new magic once she learned her true identity. Lyra has other plans." Joyce took his face in her hands, her expression determined.
Diana deserves to know the full truth, Thomas. The dreams of Atlantis are her heritage calling to her. We can't keep hiding her royal lineage from her, especially now that her powers are manifesting so strongly.
Thomas closed his eyes briefly, leaning into his wife's touch. When he opened them again, there was resignation mingled with fear. If we tell her about Atlantis, about being Princess Divina, if she chooses to go, we could lose her to Lyra's political schemes that nearly destroyed me. His voice broke slightly. I saw what the prophecy did to the last twin flames, Joy. How it tore Atlantis apart. I won't let Diana be used the way I saw others used. Joyce said firmly,
I'm worried about our daughter living half a life because she doesn't understand why she feels torn between two worlds. She knows she's half fae, but those dreams of underwater cities and coral towers must be so confusing without knowing about Atlantis.
Thomas looked toward Diana's room, his supernatural hearing picking up her even breathing as she slept, no doubt lost in another dream of Atlantis. Tomorrow, he finally said. We'll tell her everything tomorrow, after she returns from the aquarium. About Atlantis, about her royal blood, about what it means to be Princess Divina. But Joy. His eyes met hers, ancient power swirling in their depths. If she chooses to accept, if she goes to Atlantis after learning who she truly is, everything changes. The prophecy, the twin flame, the fate of both our worlds, it all falls on her shoulders. And Mother's warning about Lyra's true intentions. Joyce nodded solemnly.
I know, but she's our daughter, Thomas. Royal Fae or not, she has your heart and my spine. Whatever she chooses, she won't face it alone. And she'll need to know the truth about Queen Lyra and Queen Mother Rose's concerns.
Thomas drew his wife into his arms, embracing as they had for 25 years. Outside, the stars seemed to pulse in response, as if the celestial dimension itself was waiting for Diana to learn she was Princess Divina and to claim her crown.
Lucian pressed his lips together as he stood with the other 11 initiates in the Academy's central courtyard. The pre-dawn air held a momentary coolness that would vanish with the first rays of sun. Before them stood Master Kiva, member of the Board of Alchemists and most senior of the Fire Masters, aside from his father, of course, her weathered face as impassive as the stone walls surrounding them.
Fire is energy,
She began, her voice barely above a whisper, forcing the initiates to lean forward.
Will is fire. In the Academy, these truths are one and the same.
She gestured to the stone basin before her. Inside was a measure of fire so small it barely covered the bottom, perhaps 3 small flames at most.
Each of you will receive one question. Answer correctly and you may stoke the flames. Fail and you receive nothing. This is your first test.
Lucian felt his resolve waver. Master Kiva had instructed the students of her class to deprive themselves of heat for 3 days and had been fed cold rations, a deliberate choice to intensify their longing for warmth. He now understood the knowing looks from senior students, the whispered advice. The first lesson is always desire. As the questioning began, Lucian watched in horror as the first initiate attempted to stoke the flames too greedily when given her chance, causing Master Kiva to pull the torch away.
Waste nothing.
The master admonished.
Not fire, not words, not knowledge. That is the desert way.
By the time the torch reached Lucian, half the initiates had failed their questions and stood shivering with unfocused eyes. Master Kiva studied him, then asked,
Name the 3 signs that a fire source is unstable and should not be used.
Lucian's mind raced through the texts he had memorized. Multicolored flames, erratic pulsing of the embers, and... He paused, desperately searching his memory. And unusually fast consumption of kindling. Master Kiva's expression didn't change, but she lit the torch and held it out.
Tend it carefully, initiate. This is your first true lesson.
You're listening to Tides of Fire, Prophecy of Atlantis by C.D. Harrison. If you'd like to experience the story beyond these episodes, the novel Tides of Fire is available now on Kindle Unlimited, as well as in paperback and hardcover wherever books are sold. Now, back to the story.
The great oasis buzzed with the day's activity. Earth alchemists tended the gardens, their hands glowing green as they coaxed life from the desert soil. Herbs with leaves like liquid metal, flowers that chimed in the wind, fruits that glowed from within. Air alchemists worked from copper towers that rose like needles into the sky, their flowing white and silver robes rippling in winds of their own making. Water alchemists gathered at ancient springs, their movements fluid and precise as they drew forth and purified the desert's hidden waters. Lucian strode through the Academy's halls like he owned them, which, technically, he would someday. Students and teachers alike moved out of his way, some with admiring glances, others with barely concealed resentment. He ignored them all, making his way to his father's office in the highest tower. In the courtyard near his father's office, Lucian paused and knelt beside the fountain of a large salamander with water bubbling from the top of his head. His reflection rippled in water so clear it seemed almost invisible. The water swirled beneath his gaze, not from any physical disturbance, but responding to something within him. In its depths, he saw flashes of a throne room beneath the sea, heard a woman scream that seemed to echo across worlds. The scream wasn't just sound, it was a pressure inside his skull, a pulse through his blood, as if something deep and ancient were waking inside him. Lucian's hand clenched, fingernails digging into his palm until tiny crescents of blood appeared. The water in the fountain began to swirl faster, responding to his agitation. Lucian,
You saw it again, didn't you?
Eldrin Cross, approached with measured grace. Years of working with volatile elements had left their mark. His hands were stained with various compounds, and fine lines radiated from his amber eyes. His robes, deep purple with silver and gold trim, were a masterwork of alchemical crafting, countless tiny runes embroidered into the fabric, each one active and glowing faintly. "It's the same every time," Lucian said, forcing himself to release his grip on the fountain's edge. "The throne, the sea." He hesitated, his voice dropping. Lucian stood and followed his father through his office doors and closed them behind him. Eldrin Cross stood at the window as Lucian sat in a leather chair near the fireplace. Finally having permission to take in the heat, warming his cool skin, he savored the sensation. Eldrin didn't turn around immediately, and Lucian noticed his father's hands were pressed against the glass, as if trying to hold something back.
The board meets next week.
Eldrin said finally, still not turning.
They'll want to know my successor is ready, that he takes his position seriously.
"I am ready to be your apprentice," Lucian said, though something in his chest tightened at the words. "I was born for this." Now Eldrin did turn, and for a moment, just a moment, Lucian thought he saw something like grief in his father's eyes. But that was impossible. This was what they'd both always wanted, wasn't it?
The Sunfire family will be at the Sahun Masquerade Ball.
Eldrin said carefully.
Their daughter...
"Father, please, I'm not interested in arranged marriages."
This isn't about marriage, Lucian. It's about alliances, about protecting...
Eldrin stopped abruptly, his hands clenching.
About protecting the future of the Oasis.
Lucian opened his mouth to argue further, but something made him pause. Through the window behind his father, he could see the sacred pond in the Academy's central courtyard. For a moment, the water seemed to move of its own accord, forming patterns that looked almost like writing.
Lucian?
His father's voice snapped him back to reality.
Are you listening? You must master all the 7 elements to become my apprentice. You only have a year left to prepare before you begin your trials. The Initiate Research Expedition and Fire Harvest coming soon will only test you further.
"Of course, father," he said smoothly, pushing the vision away. "I am taking my studies seriously. I understand how important this is." But as he left his father's office, the image lingered. The mysterious woman from his dreams, reaching for him across an impossible distance. For a moment, he felt the weight of waters he'd never known pressing against his skin, and heard the echo of a voice calling his name. Then the moment passed, and he was just Lucian Cross again, the Lord Alchemist's son, future headmaster, player of hearts. Nothing more. The dreams meant nothing. The strange pull he felt toward the west, toward the ocean, meant nothing. He had his role to play, his destiny laid out before him like the neat paths of the Oasis Academy's rose gardens. As an initiate, Lucian finally earned access to the night library. Unlike the general archives accessible during daylight hours, the night library operated during the cooler darkness, when precious manuscripts could be safely handled without the risk of damage from sweat-dampened fingers.
"You're new,"
observed Mestra, a woman whose intricate head wrap marked her as the Wind Reader, keeper of the night library. She sat cross-legged on a woven mat, surrounded by charts covered in cryptic notations.
"Seeking what knowledge, Initiate?"
"Techniques for creating an eternal flame," Lucian replied, repeating the assignment he'd been given. The Wind Reader's laugh was dry as sand.
"Of course Master Kiva would send you for that. She tests you, boy."
"Tests me how?"
"Such knowledge isn't written in books accessible to initiates."
She gestured to the scrolls around her.
"These storm prediction charts took me 7 years to earn the right to view. The knowledge you seek? Perhaps 15 years of service.
Lucian's heart sank. Then my assignment is impossible.
In the desert, nothing is impossible. Merely costly. She studied him with narrowed eyes. I could use an assistant for my night observations this season. In return, I might share a beginner's technique for drawing water from air. Not what your master expects you to find, but enough to show you didn't fail completely.
Lucian paused, realizing his first lesson in academy politics. If he accepted her offer, he would owe a debt to the wind reader. If he refused, he would undoubtedly fail his assignment. "When do your observations begin?" he asked, making his choice. Initiates who owed too many favors learned quickly that knowledge in the oasis cost more than gold. It cost freedom.